Thanks to the suspicions of his friends, such as Pierce Walsh, the authorities were now actively searching for Mr. O'Connor, and his last known location was 3 Miniver Place, Bermondsey.
The kitchen floor was very neat. It had just been freshly whitened. 2 police officers who had the key from the landlord noticed that a couple of the flagstones had damp edges. So he put his penknife there and it was soft. So they heaved up the flagstones, dug down deeper, and then they found a toe. They realised that they probably found Patrick O'Connor.
Patrick O'Connor had been buried face down, naked, with his feet tied back to his thighs. His body was covered in quicklime.
Stupidly, when they were after they put quicklime on the body to destroy it, they left his false teeth in, which led to his identification by the dentist.
Actually, that was a sort of milestone, if you like, in identification.
This was now a murder investigation, and the hunt for the killers was on.
A £100 reward had been issued by the Home Secretary, Sir George Grey, for the apprehension of the suspects. But it was police ingenuity that led to the capture of Marie Manning rather than a mob in search of a big payday.
Scotland Yard were brought in and the new detective branch started inquiries. There'd been some luggage with a lady answering Manning's description that had gone up to Edinburgh.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes?
There's 2 gentlemen here to see you.
They used the new telegraph system to contact the Edinburgh police, traced Manning, brought her back to London.
It was the telegraph also that led to the capture of Frederick Manning, when a report came in on the wire that he'd been spotted on a steamer heading for the Channel Islands. It turned out he spent most of his time there in hiding.
Police! Get down on the floor, Patrick! Get down on the floor! Frederick Manning, you are under arrest for the murder of Patrick O'Connor!
The morbid tale of the Mannings electrified the public. It was dubbed the Bermondsey Horror. The Times even reported that she was reading their report of the crime when the messenger of justice interrupted her studies.
The Mannings had nowhere to hide. They didn't even have each other anymore, given how their relationship had soured. In their trial at the Old Bailey, they would mount their own separate defences, and Marie would become furious
No!
with the way she was treated.
I will not stand it!
But it's hard to argue against a dead body being found under your kitchen floor. On the 9th of August, 1849, Patrick O'Connor, an Irishman, had been murdered at 3 Miniver Place in Bermondsey. His sudden disappearance had not gone unnoticed, and a week later, the police discovered his body buried under the kitchen floor. A nationwide hunt was launched for his killers, who had fled in opposite directions. Marie Manning was attempting to start a new life in Edinburgh, Scotland, while Frederick Manning was in hiding on the Isle of Jersey. Both were swiftly captured and locked up in Newgate Prison, facing the charge of murder. The Mannings' trial at the Old Bailey was the talk of the town. It seemed everyone had an opinion about the Bermondsey Horror. Frederick Manning's defense was simple. He wanted to exploit the intense negative press surrounding Marie Manning to his own advantage and blame the whole thing on her. She was, after all, the foreigner in the midst.
My hypothesis might at first sight appear shocking and unmanly. We're all in the habit of associating the female character with mildness and obedience, and the male character with power and strength. This rule is not a universal one, however. History teaches us that the female is capable of reaching higher in point of virtue than the male. But when she descends to vice, she sinks far lower than our sex. My hypothesis, then, is that the female defendant, Manning, premeditated, planned, and concocted the murder, and made her husband her dupe and instrument for that purpose.
Marie's defense, on the other hand, suggested that she hadn't been at the scene of the crime at all and only became involved in the cover-up and the theft.
I don't think there was any particular reason to think that they weren't acting in concert together, and they both escaped together, even though they escaped in different directions.
I can't believe that he would have had the courage to do it on his own. I think he would have had, I think she was the driving force there.
Marie refused to look at her husband during the trial and testified that O'Connor was more to me than my husband, and that he'd been killed by Fred in a jealous rage. But it was Marie who invited the victim to dinner, and it was she who'd taken delivery of a new shovel on the very day of the murder. Could it have been fear for her own life in the face of a violent, jealous, dangerous man that made her steal the victim's money? Could it be that same fear that made her flee to Scotland?
I think it was almost inevitable that they would be found guilty. I mean, they had the railway shares, the body was found under the flags in their kitchen.
In those days, trials at the Old Bailey were very short. They took place very, very quickly. Certainly in the 18th century, the average Old Bailey trial lasted about 10 minutes. A jury would be sworn in for the day and would deal with several cases. So, looking back, the criminal justice system seems a bit rough and ready by today's standards. But by the standards of the day, they would have been regarded as fairly convicted, I'm sure.
The jury took just 45 minutes to reach their verdict.
Frederick George Manning and Maria Manning, you have been convicted of the crime of murder.
No! I will not stand it! You are to be ashamed of yourselves. There is no law, no justice here.
You have been defended by able counsel.
They called no witness.
Every topic that their ingenuity and experience taught them has been urged in your defense. You have been found guilty upon evidence that clearly leaves no room for rational doubt in the mind of any human being who has heard the evidence. There is but one sentence open to me consistent with justice: that you be taken hence to Her Majesty's jail in the county of Surrey, and thence to the place of execution, severally to be hung by the neck until you be dead. And may the Lord have mercy upon your soul.
Behold, Thou desirest truth in the inward parts, and in this hidden part thou shalt make me to know wisdom. Purge me with hyssop, and I shall be clean. Wash me, and I shall be whiter than snow.
For the penny press and the public, this was to be one of the greatest crime sensations of the century. It had all the ingredients necessary to satisfy a prurient public. Sexual intrigue, a vicious murder, a pretty foreign villainess, a desperate manhunt. It fed the nation's insatiable desire for gruesome stories. The Mannings were hanged on the roof of Horsemonger Lane Jail before a crowd that some people said was 50,000 strong. Charles Dickens watched the execution from the window of a rented room in a nearby house.
He attended the public execution of the Mannings by Horsemonger Lane Jail and felt very disturbed by the way that the crowd reacted.
He was a famous author by this time, and he decided to use his fame to highlight the barbarity on show by writing a letter to the Times.